Are you considering whether to move over to an e-reader? If you are, I was in the exact same position 3 years ago when I swore I'd never move away from a physical book like this one and go over to an e-reader like this Kindle Paperwhite. But I did make that change, and I'm so glad that I did. In this video, I want to talk about the benefits I've experienced since making the switch, what it's meant for my relationship with physical books, and also talk about some of the downsides that I think are important for anyone who's considering moving over to an e-reader themselves. To start with, I just want to touch on the reason that I made the initial switch over to a Kindle, especially when I'd been so pro physical books, to the point I genuinely thought I'd never move over to an e-reader. And it all came down to ease of use. I started to recognise that I was actually putting off books I wanted to read because they were too big and awkward to carry around. It was when I was talking to a friend that they really pushed me to move over to an e-reader. They said I could always try it, and if I didn't get on with it, I could send it back. So that's what I did. I saw it as an experiment, and that was my starting point. There have been 5 main benefits that I've seen since moving over to my Kindle 3 years ago. The first of these we've already talked about, which is ease of use. But I want to stress again just how helpful it's been to form good reading habits, that I have a full library with me no matter where I go with my Kindle. Then the e-ink display. I wasn't quite sure what to expect when I first got my Kindle, but I have to say this really surprised me. It's not exactly paper, but I think it's as close as you can expect right now. Then battery life. My Kindle typically gets 10 to 12 weeks, so it's probably my only modern device where I don't have to worry about charge. Then the inbuilt lighting display. This is so helpful when you don't want to disturb someone else, especially in a darkened environment. You just lift the lighting on the Kindle and you can still see and read perfectly. And then finally, it would be Kindle store deals. If you do choose to go through the Kindle ecosystem, they do some incredible deals, which means you can pick up some great books at discounted prices. One of my biggest concerns when moving over to an e-reader was the impact this would have on my relationship with physical books. I knew that change was inevitable, but I was petrified that it was going to mean the last time I read a paperback or a hardback copy of something, which was an even bigger shame because I still had a library of books that I'd amassed over my lifetime that I was desperate to read. Over the last 3 years, I'm glad to say that hasn't been the case. I've read 50 books, 80% have been ebooks, but 20% are still physical copies. I now have a much better balance. I read a book when I want to read a book, and that's not because I feel forced or pressured into reading it. I have the flexibility now with my Kindle and with my physical book library to choose what feels right in the moment. So I definitely don't think it's the end of physical books, but I think it's about finding a balance that works for you between an e-reader and physical books. So here are 3 downsides of an e-reader that I think everyone should be aware of before making the switch. The first is that it's just different. If you're someone who loves that magical feeling of smell and even touch of a book, then maybe an e-reader isn't right for you. Then too much data. Sometimes with my Kindle, I get so much information about speed of reading that I'm more focused on time left in chapter than I am on actually enjoying the book I'm reading. And then finally, it's that it's not a tablet. If you go into a Kindle or an e-reader expecting it to be an iPad, it's not the same experience. So it's just a forewarning that sometimes they can feel a bit clunky. But for me, that's actually part of their charm, slowing you down to try and enjoy reading. 3 years ago, I was a reluctant Kindle user, but I'm so glad that I made the switch. I now read with more consistency, and I love knowing that no matter where I am in the world, as long as I've got my Kindle, I have an amazing library of books to choose from. But it wasn't just about that. It was also about ensuring that my relationship with physical books continued. It took me a bit of time, but I'm glad to say that I finally found that balance that works for me, and it's now about the reading experience. I'd love to hear from you to find out if you prefer physical books or ebooks, or whether you're also trying to find that right balance between the two. So please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.